All right.
think
Hello,
we're
Megan.
recording. Hey, how's it going?
It's going great. Thanks for asking. So we're doing this impromptu little segment or chat or what have you because last night we went to the New Jersey gubernatorial debate in New Brunswick, New Jersey. Now, why did we go to this? Might be asking themselves, I don't care about the New Jersey gubernatorial debate. I don't even live in New Jersey. Even if they do happen to live in New Jersey, they might not care. To that, I would say, this is probably the only competitive statewide election in the United States in 2025. New Jersey and Virginia are the two states that have these off-year gubernatorial elections. The Virginia election is not particularly competitive, it would seem, in that the Democrat is probably poised to win. The Democrat might be favored to win, Mikey Sherrill in New Jersey, but it is seemingly more competitive, especially after 8 years of Democratic governance in the State House under Phil Murphy, who I really don't like. So I don't know. I might even be persuaded to vote Republican in this race, but we won't get into my preferences. And we figured we would go to this debate, right? So just let's set the scene a little bit because these debates are interesting in that there's not a whole lot of national attention, right? So it's not like the presidential debates that we went to last year. And if you notice, like the population of journalists that would populate, I just overused the term populate, events like this or debates like this, they tend to be like TV journalists, local TV network journalists, or local newspaper journalists. So no offense to them, but they're not inclined to ask that adventurous of questions for the most part.
We support local journalists, but yeah, it's the TV network people that often don't ask great questions.
Do we support local journalists? I'm not even sure if I do.
I don't know. I feel like that's just something people have to say, you know?
Yeah, that's just like a civic obligation. I mean, I support on principle the idea of having robust local journalism, but oftentimes the ones who conduct the journalism are not that great.
Also.
Yeah. So what did you make of like the scene in general of their open-ended question?
Oh, of the moderators?
Of just the journalists who were there. We're giving some people. We're giving the people some behind the scenes info.
So we were at the New Brunswick Performing Arts Center on the Rutgers campus, and these debates are weird because you don't actually watch in the room like where the debate is happening. You go into like this weird little annex room, and they put the debate on a screen, and it's kind of always like entertaining to hear the things that people react to. I mean, these debates aren't like the craziest thing ever, but occasionally you'll get some laughter or some like, ooh. So it's always entertaining to see like...
Well, remember, I was the only one jeering and screaming during the presidential debate last year in Philadelphia.
Yeah. Because of the Dick Cheney comment, you were like...
Yeah, I couldn't help it like loudly...
That was way bigger, though. This was like a tiny room. I would estimate maybe there were like 30 people there. And everyone looks very serious. They're like typing on their computers.
Yeah, they're all like very professional.
Yeah.
They're like.
I mean, I was diligently
watching...
taking notes, but
yes, in longhand, which was impressive.
Thank you. But I don't fault anyone for paying attention and doing their jobs, but you can just like.
What is their job in that moment? They're not even doing anything. They just have their noses in their computers.
They're just like looking for sound bites to like be like the debate happened and it was happening in New Jersey and there were all these exchanges, and I mean none of the exchanges were too spicy except there was, well, we can get into actual.
Well, no, there was a spicy exchange or two.
Yes, a few.
I will just say, I'll admit, because I guess subscribe to the same notions of journalistic objectivity as others. During his closing statement, Jack Ciattarelli, the Republican, talked about how every Sunday he grew up with his mother, like making great Sunday gravy and macaroni, and I couldn't help but belt out, "He's got my vote," because I can relate to that in terms of the sanctity of the Sunday Italian meal.
Your cultural I don't know.
I'm respecting my cultural heritage.
Yeah,
at least half of it.
Yeah, no, but that wasn't the spicy exchange.
No, that wasn't the spicy exchange. The spicy exchange was a Mikey Sherrill. I'm not even sure if she planned to make her allegation this specific and shocking, but she did accuse directly Jack Ciattarelli of killing tens of thousands of New Jerseyans.
You know, my opponent likes to talk a lot about being a businessman, but I think what New Jersey doesn't know is much about his business, how he made his millions by working with some of the worst offenders and saying that opioids were safe, putting out propaganda, publishing their propaganda while tens of thousands of New Jerseyans died. And as if that wasn't enough, then he was paid to develop an app so that people who were addicted could more easily get access to opioids. And so as he made millions, as these opioid companies made billions, tens of thousands of New Jerseyans died.
Mr. Chitterelli.
First of all, shame on you. Second of all,
shame on you, sir.
shame on you. During the Biden administration, she had no problem whatsoever with tens of thousands of people crashing our border each and every day, not knowing what impact they had in our communities with regard to fentanyl crisis, fentanyl abuse, fentanyl distribution, vaccination rates, and the like. Talk to your local police, talk to your county prosecutors in New Jersey. Since the border's been secured, fentanyl crisis has decreased significantly. She supported those open border policies. But with regard to everything she just said about my professional career, which provided my family, it's a lie. I'm proud of my career.
You get 30 seconds.
I'm happy to publish the information and hear
I'm
the
sure
facts.
you are.
I work because I think our kids deserve better. I think the people you got addicted and died deserve better than you.
Addicted
and I'll
and died.
tell you, yeah, tens of thousands here as you published misinformation, as you got more people addicted, as you worked to develop, got paid to develop an app so that more people could get more opioids and die.
I got
but here's
to walk
the
at my
facts.
college graduation.
I
I got to walk at my college graduation.
Sir,
and I'm
you'll
so
get 15
glad
seconds.
that you then went on to kill tens of thousands of people in New Jersey, including children,
never broke the
as
law.
they got.
I
You
never
just
broke the
broke the
law.
law. In fact, your campaign right now is under federal investigation for how you
No,
illegally
you've
got
broken the
access to
law.
my records. So to say that right now, and I think you're trying to divert from the fact that you killed tens of thousands of people by
You
printing
broke the law.
your misinformation, your propaganda, and then getting paid to develop an app so that people could more easily get the opioids once they were addicted. Families across the state deserve to know more about that.
Apparently, he had like a medical publishing company that he sold in 2017. But prior to that, he partnered with the University of Tennessee on making pain medications more freely available to people, including through the convenience of an app. And the claim is that that then got people hooked on opioids. And I don't know. I think it seems like it was like sort of an early innovation in like telehealth or something like that. But even if some of the guidelines that were operative in that app were too lax, according to some, in terms of like the distribution of pain medications, which is a fair argument, I guess, to then go ahead and claim that he personally killed thousands of people, which was pretty shocking. Again, it's not clear to me if Mikey Sherrill anticipated that she was going to make the allegation so directly and shockingly. Maybe she would have made a more general critique of his involvement in this for-profit enterprise, but I don't know. What did you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, we can play the clip exactly. I don't think she said, like, you directly killed this many people.
I think she did.
That was, like, the implication. Okay, we could go back and find
No, I think she did directly say it.
wording, and then that led to the exchange where they were like, shame on you, and then
Shame on you. No shame on you, sir.
Yeah, Jack Chitterelli brought up the fact that Mikey Sherrill didn't walk with her graduating class, and because she was implicated, he says, in this cheating scandal in which she did not snitch on her classmates who were cheating. And then, I don't know, that has become like too much of a focal point, I feel like, during this whole election season. I don't really care about that so much.
So I don't have the direct quote. We could find it easily, but in the Morning Monitor, which is like a New Jersey newsletter by Terrence T. McDonald, I believe is a former newspaper reporter, but he summarizes it as, Sherrill made the claim twice that Chitterelli killed tens of thousands of New Jerseyans, including children.
You killed tens of thousands of people by
You
printing
broke the law.
your misinformation, your propaganda, and then getting paid to develop an app.
Now, again, there are reasonable critiques to be made of maybe the
definitely.
over-accessibility of opioids or what have you for profit. But that went a little far. That did create a reaction in the room we were in, right? I mean, people definitely perked up when they heard that. For the first maybe half hour or so of the debate, a lot of it was pretty banal. Like, it was just a recitation of more standard talking points. But when that came up, and then that caused Chitterelli to do like an insult in return by saying, at least I walked in my graduation. That issue it could be. I agree that it's a little bit ticky-tack or not particularly significant. However, if Mikey Sherrill is continuing to not tell the full truth about whatever happened to go on when she was at the Naval Academy, and her claim is that she simply was deprived of the ability to walk in her graduation because she didn't snitch on others. But in reality, maybe she was more of a participant in the snitching, or like her involvement was more direct than she's let on. That just gets to her forthrightness, So who knows what other issues she might be fudging the truth on. Not that the cheating scandal itself means a whole lot, but I think it could be a legitimate issue. And also we have this weird quirk or twist where the National Archives apparently released unduly or improperly her military records after a FOIA request was filed by some Republican operative who's connected to Chitterelli. So is the National Archives potentially being politically weaponized against Democrats? Like, that's another wrinkle here that could be significant. I'm in favor of, like, maximum transparency and disclosure, right? But, like, if a specific exception was made simply because materials that reflected poorly on this Democratic gubernatorial candidate could be unearthed during a campaign, that's also significant. So there's some aspects to this whole mini controversy that go beyond just like the substance of whether or not she cheated when she was, however old, 21.
Well, but okay, her claim is that she just did not tell on other people who were cheating, which,
Right.
I mean, it's good to be honorable, especially if you have like a military background and everything. But I think like right now, her problem is coming off as like too frigid. And maybe some people really like that. People like my mom like that. They like these no nonsense like national security women. But I don't know. If I were her, I'd be like, yeah, I didn't tell on my classmates. Like, I didn't cheat, but like.
I mean, I know I would maybe support her more or be more favorably disposed toward her if she just like unapologetically said, no, of course I didn't snitch, because like I wouldn't snitch probably if I was in a similar situation. Yeah. And we should just get to her background a little bit, Mikey Sherrill. Okay, so this actually does get to some of the more national implications, right? Because she was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in 2018 it was a midterm wave that was pro-Democratic. So a lot of Democrats got elected in 2018. It was the first midterm of Trump's first term. And what the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee did that cycle, and I covered this a lot actually at the time, including for the Young Turks, believe it or not, when that was still a thing, at least in my existence, was that they were kind of, the party apparatus was intervening in basically primaries, which they're not supposed to do technically, to get the most moderate, people nominated. And what they tend to do, especially for these competitive districts that were identified, such as the one that Mikey Sherrill got elected in New Jersey, which happens to be my hometown district. So it was a Republican district, meaning there was a Republican in office, Rodney Frelinghuysen, from before I was born in 1988 to 2018 when Mikey Sherrill got elected. That whole span of time in my life, that was a Republican district. It's more of an affluent suburban district, and those were the districts that the Democrats were targeting at the time because these affluent suburbs were trending Democratic. But, so she got the party machinery behind her to get nominated. And she was seen as like one of these rising stars. So she was like in the same class as Alyssa Slotkin, who got elected in Michigan to the House, or this Abigail Spanberger, who's now running for governor of Virginia. So they were like these national security women, right, who were either CIA in the case of Slotkin, or in the case of Sherrill, she was a former federal prosecutor, a naval aviator. So there was like a certain archetype that the Democrats were trying to draw from to get these people elected. So Mikey Sherrill, should she win in New Jersey, which hasn't elected a lot of female governors, the most recent one was actually a Republican governor, Christy Todd Whitman. She could very easily be a national figure, probably be courted to run for president at some point, etc. So it is worth paying a little bit of attention to this race. I would say, just given that it's like the long game that was used by these Democratic sort of operatives or machinery overseers to get certain Democrats in positions of national prominence.
Yeah. And, okay, another reason to pay attention to this debate, and maybe this is just, me saying that New York City is the center of the universe, is, there is a New York City...
Start
New Jersey
spreading
flag.
the news.
No, but
We're leaving today. Sorry.
You just interrupted.
Sometimes I can't, because I'm semi-autistic, as people on the internet tell me, sometimes I just can't help but break out into song like New York, New York. But go ahead.
Anyway, as I was saying, obviously a lot of people are watching the New York City elections, and it's interesting because Mamdani has endorsed Mikey Sherrill, and she has not reciprocated that endorsement. At least she's given all these like kind of non-answers about Mamdani when asked about him. And on one hand, you have people like Jack Ciattarelli saying that she, hasn't like said that she doesn't want his endorsement, and that is, a stain on her campaign. But then you also have Dems who are, saying like, why don't you endorse Mamdani? And it's just, you can see that he's already causing problems for the Democratic Party because I don't really personally care whether she's like, yes, I support Mamdani. Like, I don't think that Democrats should necessarily have that enforce like ideological conformity, but it is frustrating that she won't just either give like a criticism of him and explain why, or just endorse him and say that, she's going to work with him. Even if she doesn't endorse him, just like explain, okay, we'll have like a good working relationship with New York City. And she spent like a good portion of this debate talking about the Gateway Tunnel project between New Jersey and New York City. And she was, complaining about the Trump like cutting or withholding funding for this. And
Related to the government shutdown. That's
yeah. But then, when later asked by me, like, do you endorse Mamdani or do you reciprocate his endorsement, she was like, oh, I'm not getting into that. And, it's just ridiculous because as the governor of New Jersey, you would have to work with the mayor of New York City. And so to pretend like this, race doesn't, like, concern you, I don't know. I just think that it's very cowardly.
Yeah, and there have been a huge number of issues in which the governor of New Jersey and the mayor of New York City / the governor of New York have been involved in like heated live issues, like
right,
with
like
the congestion pricing.
Yeah.
New York and New Jersey co-manage the Port Authority, meaning it's a bi-state enterprise, so that runs like the airports in the region, the cross river passings, so the bridges, tunnels, etc. George Washington Bridge and Lincoln Tunnel are both managed by the Port Authority. The Holland Tunnel is a little bit different because it's older. Like, it doesn't really make any sense, but so there's a lot of like commingled interests here, obviously, and yeah, Megan asked a very good question at the press conference
thank you,
afterwards.
But it's a question she's been asked before, which is frustrating.
It's been asked before, but like you're right, Mikey Sherrill. It's not that she doesn't even address it. I actually didn't know until yesterday that Zohran had been asked a question about Mikey Sherrill and had endorsed her. Because Zohran's political incentives are different, right? He's trying to moderate. He'll take an endorsement from any standard normie Democrat, right? So that's why he got Kathy Hochul. Right. He'll accept an endorsement, like he would. I'm sure he would accept an endorsement from Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries if they were willing to offer it, which as of yet they're not. But so he's trying to moderate by sort of like aligning with more moderate Democrats. But Mikey Sherrill, already a big moderate, or like that's her public image, right, has to fend off any accusations that she's empowering this more radical element. So therefore she gives these wishy-washy non-answers, including to you when you asked her the question. So we should play the clip now. And you also tried to follow up saying, but like when she wouldn't answer, you shouted out, but you'd have to work with the mayor of New York
Right.
City, etc. So your answer is even more absurd. in light of that.
If Zohran Mamdani were elected, do you reciprocate his endorsement, yes or no?
I'm not getting involved in the
But
New
you
York
have to
mayor's
work with the
race.
mayor of New York City about the tunnel and
So that was Megan's question at this post-debate press conference. So it was a little bit different than how post-debate situations have tended to work in my experience, in that like ABC News, like the local ABC affiliate that hosted this debate, set up like a formal press conference type area that the candidates would come to and talk to the reporters afterwards. It wasn't just like a scrum or like a surrogate coming out to take questions. And they didn't really give the candidates like instructions on what to do, it seemed. So like they're like, okay, what do I do? Once they stood up on that podium. So I got the first question into Jack Ciattarelli, I think. And it was a little bit more of it was like a little bit out of left field, I'll admit. But, I wanted to mix things up because, I'm sorry, these local reporters ask the most boring questions that don't ever really shine light on anything interesting.
Okay, but do the national reporters do like that much of a better job?
Not really.
Or the international reporters who
No.
do the worst job, arguably?
No, so maybe you're right. I shouldn't confine
You just think
my
you're better
critique
than all of them.
I think I'm better than everybody on Earth. But so are you, Megan. I include you because you asked the good question about Zohran.
It was a good question.
So I asked. So one of the themes is that Mikey Sherrill's trying to accuse Jack Ciattarelli of being overly tied to Trump, right? So Mikey Sherrill also has an incentive to nationalize the race as much as possible, even though it's a gubernatorial race, which is also interesting in terms of a national audience or why this could be a national import, because we've seen a trend over the course of years where races that maybe had more localized dynamics have become more nationally oriented, especially with the rise of Trump, because any Republican is automatically going to be accused of being like in hock to Trump. And especially in states that are more Democratic leaning, the Democratic candidate will try to make hay of that, right? Even though Jack Ciattarelli, he's kind of just like a squish, moderate Republican, pretty much. He actually won a Republican primary earlier this year against much more right-wing Republicans.
He's
and Trump,
pro-choice also.
Yeah, he's
Made that very clear,
pro-choice.
Yeah.
Although, describe his answer actually on the abortion thing, because it was actually kind of more in line with, like, if I had to make my own personal statement on abortion, it's kind of more aligned with what I would say.
He, if I remember correctly, he said that, he would want to see like federal funding, or I don't know if it's state funding or federal funding, go to
State
both
funding.
like state funding go to Planned Parenthood and, like how they have like pregnancy centers that are usually like more conservative or sometimes like somewhat religious and pro-life leaning, where they, encourage women to not have abortions, I guess. So he would want to see the funding go to both of those.
But he also said, in general, he wouldn't be like celebrating abortion as this great, triumph for New Jersey, or necessarily like trying to make New Jersey into a haven so people who can't get abortions in other states that are more conservative can come to New Jersey and get like a fully funded abortion. But at the same time, he would say that, if women are in a situation where they need an abortion in New Jersey, they can still get access to it under his preferred sort of regimen. So it was
He
more
also
just
wanted
about...
I think he wanted like the notification, like if you're under 18, that your parents had to be notified.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. Did that come up yesterday? I'm not even sure.
Well, he made some comment. He was like, I don't know if this is even true. He was like, oh, if you're under 18, like you can't get your ears pierced in New Jersey,
Okay.
like without a parent. So he was like, why should you be able to get an abortion?
Okay.
We should really have rewatched this.
I might have zoned out at that part.
I've always supported a woman's right to choose, and I said yes to that question back in 2021. What I don't support is celebrating abortion the way the current administration does. What I don't support is making New Jersey the abortion capital of the country, inviting other people from other states to come to New Jersey and have their abortions performed. I don't support that, let alone use taxpayer dollars to do that. I also support something that my opponent does not, parental notification. In the state of New Jersey, you can't get your ears pierced under the age of 18 without the permission of your parents. But we're not going to notify parents when a 16 or 17-year-old is having an abortion performed? I think that's terribly wrong. I've yet to find the most liberal, maybe with one exception, of women across the state who support that policy. So that's where my position has always been on abortion. I've supported a woman's right to choose.
Mr. Chitterelli.
We're not Texas. Any woman whose pregnancy is in trouble, whose health is at stake, they will be able to have their abortion performed safely by competent clinicians to protect the woman's health. We are not Texas. With regard to Planned Parenthood, the question I've always asked the Democrats in the Trenton is, why is it they get 100% of the money? Why is it we don't send any of the money to pregnancy resource centers like Lighthouse in Bergen County, for example? I don't think that's fair. Let's distribute the money equitably.
But the point is, he's basically a moderate, he's a moderate New Jersey Republican. So this idea that like he's just going to be 100% subservient to Trump on everything is a little bit of a stretch. Like, I mean, maybe rhetorically he would be. I mean, like Trump did endorse him in the primary, which means that he was automatically guaranteed to win the primary, essentially, because like whoever Trump endorses in a primary is almost assured to win. A Republican primary, that is, especially in Congress. On the state level, it's a little bit different, but nonetheless, Jack Ciattarelli did win, partly on the strength of this endorsement from Trump. So Mikey Sherrill, because New Jersey's more Democratic, more of a Democratic-leaning state, wants to hype that Trump connection. Although it should be said that New Jersey and New York, both, but New Jersey in particular, trended significantly Republican into the 2024 presidential election. Mm-hmm. Like Trump won Passaic County, New Jersey, which would have been unthinkable just a few cycles ago. Like Hillary Clinton won it by like 30% or something like that. Biden won it last time by like 20-something%. And then there was this gigantic shift to Trump in 2024, largely powered by Latino voters. So anyway, it's interesting to see how these national dynamics translate to a state race. Mm-hmm. And so that led to why I asked this question about Venezuela. Okay, not the most obvious state level issue in New Jersey. However, if Ciattarelli did, like, he was asked, like, how do you grade the Trump administration or Trump in the second term, and he gave him an A. So he's mostly supportive of Trump, and Trump and Rubio et al. Are now doing what increasingly does seem like an overt regime change operation in Venezuela, and New Jersey does have one of the highest Venezuelan populations in the country. Florida by far is number one. It has like 50% of all Venezuelan Americans, but then it's New York, New Jersey, and a handful of others, right? So if there was a regime change operation that was carried out in Venezuela, it's conceivable that there will be more migratory outflows that could result in additional Venezuelans coming to New Jersey, especially if they have family or friends or whatever that are here. And so we'll play his response to my question and then his response to it.
Mr. Ciattarelli, looking a little bit out of left field, but New Jersey has one of the highest populations of Venezuelan residents in the country. And the Trump administration is currently waging what seems like it could be a regime change operation in Venezuela. Is that something that, in principle, you're in favor of, even if it might result in an influx of family members or acquaintances of those Venezuelans to New Jersey?
I don't know enough about the issue to comment. All I'll say is we welcome as many legal immigrants as possible in New Jersey.
So he basically didn't answer the question. He claimed he didn't know much about it. Maybe that's true. Like, maybe he hasn't studied it. But, it is actually relevant. And, okay, so why do I ask that question? I kind of already explained it. But, I like to sort of mix things up. Like, reporters in general, Megan, you could probably attest to this at this point. They'll ask kind of just, like, narrative-based questions. Like a reporter asked yesterday something like, will New Jersey voters care that Mikey Sherrill might not be seen as an authentic New Jerseyan, right? Because she's from Virginia. But Jack is like, he has generations going back from Somerset County, New Jersey or whatever when his ancestors came over from Ellis Island. I mean, people might relate to that, but it's just kind of like a dumb question. It's not policy oriented.
I mean, the sad truth is, like, people, they care about those kinds of questions way more. At least, like, for TV, they're like, oh, what's Mikey Sherrill's, like, does she like pork roll? Like, they're not great questions, but I understand, like, it's very suited for network TV.
Yeah. There was this little controversy about Mikey Sherrill and the pork roll. I mean, actually, if you watch the full clip of what she said, she wasn't denouncing the pork roll. She was endorsing Taylor ham, as how it's described, right? So
it's just like such a stupid, like, regional food debate. Whatever. Sorry.
I mean, I am a fan of Taylor ham, I have to say. It is a New Jersey delicacy.
Yeah.
Trenton. It was. I think it was actually called the Trenton roll originally, or like there was because
I've always called it pork roll, but whatever.
See, this is the big regional. So Megan's from
'cause I'm
Philadelphia. I'm from
South
northern New Jersey.
Jersey,
Taylor, nobody
Philadelphia.
calls it. You don't. If you call it a pork roll, you get thrown out of wherever you happen to be.
Okay, well, this is a stupid debate, but this is unfortunately the thing that, like, it's like the Sunday sauce comment by Jack Ciattarelli. It's like that probably just
Gravy,
got him,
not
like,
sauce. That
whatever. It just probably, like, I don't know. Also, Mikey Sherrill's response to that question, which was like, what's something people may not know about you? This was during the debate. She was like, people may not know this, but I love going to my kids' sports games.
That was just like so perfectly emblematic of how boring and banal and like over rehearsed she is. Like they do one of these dumb, lighthearted questions toward the end. They do this at
Or
the
they're like,
presidential debates,
what do
too.
you like? They did the, remember the
What do you
red
like the
sweater
most
guy?
about your opponent?
Yeah, what do you like the most about
And of course, like they both praise they praise Jack's son's military service, and then he praised Mikey's military service. So that's like the most obvious answer anybody could ever possibly give. But then I guess they're supposed to give like a fun fact about one another.
Yeah.
Or no, they're supposed to give a
About
fun fact about themselves. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Mikey's like, people might not know this, but I really enjoy going to my children's sports games. I mean, give me a break.
Yeah. It'd be funnier if she said she hates it. Like.
Right, that's right. Yeah, that's what I said. I mean, at least that would be funny and notable. Like, I actually kind of can't stand going to my children's dopey soccer games.
She said, she was like, I used to not like it, but now I like. I don't know. It was just like, okay, whatever.
Okay, so the question that I asked Mikey, and because I'm very aggressive and bold and assertive, I think this was the first question at her press conference, right? Because I was like, "Arr!" raising my hand to make sure that she saw me. But I noticed, and this was sort of like an on-the-fly question that I came up with, partially because Megan, you had been looking into her advocacy of these like online safety measures, which she had done a press conference about. Maybe we can play a clip from her press conference, or at least the most notable part of it, because again, it doesn't really get to her political orientation in general, and what she's been up to in Congress since 2019. But over and over again, she was accusing Jack Ciattarelli of engaging in misinformation, right, over the course of this debate. And she was using the term misinformation to like describe contested political claims, essentially, right? And oftentimes the term misinformation has been used as a buzzword to justify censorship, especially online censorship, right? Because it's very dangerous to allow misinformation to proliferate, right? So I asked her, like, why are you constantly using the term misinformation to describe contested political claims? And we could hear the question and what she said.
Why do you constantly use the term misinformation to describe contested political claims? Often misinformation has been used to justify censorship, especially on the internet. You said that you're the better for the candidates on free speech. So why the constant use of that terminology?
I guess because it just seems a little aggressive all the time to keep saying that he's lying.
So what did you make of her answer to that?
It was not helping her image. I think it was a very dismissive way to answer the question, and I don't think she like fully, not that she didn't understand what you were asking, but it just goes to show that like she's genuinely one of those people who like uses the word misinformation without any criticism of that word, like just I think accepts it to be true. Yeah, it's a very like stuck in like a few years ago. I don't know who, if you use the word like we denounce misinformation, we must crack down on misinformation, if that even still like really resonates with people. Like maybe it resonates with her, demographic that she's going after, which is very like center left, like upstanding citizen moms or something who are like, oh, misinformation, that sounds really bad. And they just,
like
associate. All right, we don't need to talk about my mom.
You brought her up.
Okay. But they're like, like your average like CNN watcher who's like, we must crack down on this, like we can, and they don't have any concerns for like, how does this relate to censorship or freedom of speech? And they see kind of an unfiltered internet as an extreme threat. And, even when the things that were considered misinformation like 5 years ago are now kind of just part of our common like political discourse. So, it was just a very dismissive response to your question, and I don't think or maybe she kind of clocked like where you were coming from and thought that you were some sort of like InfoWarsy person or something, and was like,
What? InfoWarsy person? I mean, I will admit that my tone, which I know everybody's very concerned about tone and tone policing, my tone was fairly, I would say, mildly scornful, just because
Yeah,
I did
you were
find it
like-
annoying and obnoxious that she kept saying misinformation over and over again, like we were joking during the debate, take a shot every time she says misinformation. And then sure enough, like 2 minutes later, she would say it again, and it's the most, like, inapt context in which she uses that term, right?
Yeah,
It's,
it also didn't even make she was just using it for lies. Just say lies. These are lies. Like, that's what she meant to say, but she was like, no, it sounded too rude to say lies. Like, I don't know.
right, so she uses this like non-profit generated bureaucratized term,
Right. It's a very
misinformation,
like, oh, I'm
which
so
again
much
just gets to
smarter
her
than you.
sensibility politically, which I do
Yeah.
find very annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, just talk briefly about this measure she's promoting in terms of the online safety thing, because it does get to she's been very ambiguous as to what her legislative priorities would even be, but apparently this could be one of them in terms of like a state level online safety measure. So, like, what's she up to with that?
So she basically wants to open up a center to study online safety, essentially, which would be housed presumably at one of the public schools in New York, or not, sorry, oh my god, I have New York brain, in New Jersey. And also she's proposed, I think she's supported, I have to check the COSA Act in Congress, but I need to double check on that. But basically, she wants to like hold tech companies accountable and prevent algorithms from like feeding young people certain content. And I mean, it's tricky because like, yes, like socially, I think this is something that, tech companies should have to start thinking about. But as you can see, like in the UK, when you have official government censorship of these things and you require age verification to actually enact these policies, it often does lead to censorship and prevents everyone from accessing information. And in general, it's like, I don't think these people understand that there are social ways, if you don't want your kids like seeing certain things on social media, that you can enforce that as like a concerned parent without leaving this up to the government, who will inevitably just use this to like grab more power and prevent people from seeing views that are considered extreme, which is just a very vague word and can just be used to like filter out opinions that like challenge powerful centers. So
Or filter out whatever Mikey Sherrill considers to be misinformation.
Yeah, exactly. Also, it's interesting, like, how would a state enact this? And she said that she's looking to California for guidance on some of these policies. So I guess California is leading. In
Yeah,
some
so
of
it's
the
whatever
guidance.
Gavin Newsom considers to be misinformation. Yeah, and also whatever Mikey Sherrill's proposing in New Jersey, like if she's saying that she's going to have the taxpayers fund some kind of new research center associated with Rutgers or whatever other university I guess she has in mind, that's inevitably, they're inevitably just going to produce a whole bunch of like BS reports and studies. It's going to be make work. It's just going to be like part of this NGO complex that Democrats love, and like Mikey Sherrill is a perfect, emblem of, where they don't even like do like like let's say there is a real ethical quandary that has to be studied or resolved in terms of the adverse effects that teens or whomever get from using social media platforms. I just don't buy that like whatever program Mikey Sherrill wants to subsidize is going to come up with it. It's going to just like create these like make work little grants and stuff for all these faux academicians, is that the term? Academics to like study something and just get money for it because it's supposedly so public spirited. I mean, it's just like a recipe for nonsense, I think.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, like I do think it is a problem that is in the public interest, but I don't, as like a taxpayer, necessarily know if I want to pay for that or if that should be like left to a private institution. And it also shouldn't be used to justify like age verification laws for like, Also, I don't even know how like New Jersey would enforce this, like within the state. Like how would that work? Like, there aren't really like tech companies that are based in New Jersey that this would affect. California, I could see this maybe like working a little bit more since the companies are based there, but I don't know.
Well, we have had, I mean, there have been Republican states actually that have been increasingly passing age verification for more like, I guess, porn sites.
Right.
So I guess there is a mechanism there that can be triggered even if the company is not corporately housed in like Texas, where I think they did pass this recently. But I would have to look more into the specifics of that.
Yeah. But I mean, like the age verification for something like Instagram or Facebook or Snapchat, these are the platforms where they say like people are being fed either like very depressing or extreme content. That means that like everyone would need to verify their age in order to access like certain content, and it just, I don't know. It also gets rid of anonymity online, which I see some issues with that. So
Yeah. Okay. And finally, I was able to bring up my own personal bugaboo, which is Jeffrey Epstein. Remember him?
wait, really?
Well, you know what? It wasn't my doing this. This became an issue in the New Jersey gubernatorial election, as bizarre as that sounds, because Mikey Sherrill is still a sitting member of Congress, and she has signed on to this discharge petition for this legislation to bring this legislation up for a vote to supposedly release the Epstein files. Right? This is the Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie legislation that all Democrats support in the House, as well as a handful of Republicans like Massie, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, etc. But Mikey has been trying to use this to basically just as an attack against Jack Ciattarelli, because the idea is, and we can put up her Facebook little statement that she made last month on this. But she says that she's heroically signing on to this discharge petition, but Jack will never support it because he's worried that Trump is in the Epstein files, right? So he wants to keep the Epstein files concealed, and it's just so stupid because like everybody knows that Trump is like quote in Epstein files. Doesn't mean that he's incriminated in any sex trafficking activities, but like people don't know enough about it to even comment, and people think that like the Epstein files are going to be released as a result of this legislation, which is also not true because it contains exceptions for victims identifying information and even national security. I won't get into the whole speech on that, but I did think it was worth bringing up because it has been introduced as an issue, bizarrely enough, into this gubernatorial race, which gets to, again, how these races get nationalized and how more nationally relevant issues get imported into a state-based context. Because, Jack Ciattarelli, he has no role in the Epstein files. He's a former New Jersey state assemblyman who is kind of a chronic candidate for governor now. I think this is his third race, right? I actually didn't even know he ran. I forgot he ran the first time. I think it was in a Republican primary that he lost. But this is his third go at a New Jersey gubernatorial race, and he's been the nominee for the Republicans in 2 consecutive cycles now. But, this is basically just a cheap attack line that Mikey tried to use against him. And so I asked Jack Ciattarelli about this.
So a Congresswoman Sherrill said last month that you're afraid to support the release of the Epstein files because Donald Trump is in them. What is your response to that? Have you articulated a view on that issue?
I have a very consistent response to a great many things she says. It's a lie. I've said publicly, release the files.
So there you go. He says he wants to release the files. He has no power at all to make that happen. But I guess if you just say release the files, everybody starts cheering and applauding your commitment to transparency vis-a-vis Epstein and child sex trafficking.
It's a fair answer.
It's a fair answer, given what I'm sure he minimally knows about the whole Epstein thing. But anyway, that was my big public service last night, bringing up Epstein. So, Megan, any concluding thoughts? How did you find the whole thing? Did you find the experience? I think this was your first question that you were able to ask at a major press conference, right?
About that.
Okay, well, whatever. I'm giving you accolades and
Thank
kudos.
You. It was interesting. I mean, again, it is it seems kind of obscure, but it is, I think, an important national race, and I don't know, perhaps a bellwether in some ways. So.
Yeah, it's like a sort of a bellwether for, New Jersey and Virginia are always kind of a bellwether for what the political sentiment is at a given time, given whatever administration's in power. I'm still a little skeptical that Mikey, however lackluster I find her candidacy, is actually going to lose, because I think the national headwinds probably favor Democrats now, just as they did in 2017 when Murphy won during Trump's first term. Likewise, in Obama's first year, Chris Christie, who was a Republican, did win a gubernatorial race. So there's sort of an ebb and flow there in terms of the national dynamic. But you never know. I mean, people might think that they can harness the spirit of Charlie Kirk or whatever to get a Republican elected. Actually, Charlie Kirk did come up in the debate last night, right? So that's another national issue.
Yeah. I don't know if we want to get into that, but yeah.
We don't have to get into that, but
okay.
it was just like another example of like a national issue that kind of gets transported into the state dynamic. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, Megan, yes, good chat. We went a little longer than we had planned, but hey, that's what the people demand.
Yep. Thanks.
All right. Talk to you later.
Bye.